What's up guys, Andrew Bandit here, and it is that time of the year to go over the top metal albums of 2020. If you guys are somehow unfamiliar with my channel and have never seen me before, if you're looking for thrash metal, death metal, or the more classical genres of metal, you are going to be severely disappointed. I of course focus on more of the metalcore, deathcore, gent side of things. That's what I like the most, so that's what I end up picking. I also want to note, of course, as with all top lists, just because I don't mention it in my top 5 doesn't mean I necessarily didn't like it, and it might mean I just didn't hear it. So I always like seeing your guys' comments in the comments section below recommending other albums. I believe this is how I actually heard of the band in my #1 spot, was by reading your guys' comments on one of these that I did a few years back. So by all means, feel free to comment down below what your favorite album of 2020 was, because it's probably different than mine. So with that all being said, my main goal with these videos is to simply show you guys what I like, and I really hope that you guys find some new music that you might want to check out if you haven't heard it yet. That's what this is all about, so hopefully you guys find some new music and some new bands to listen to through my list. So with that being said, this time around I'm doing 5 albums. This time around they are full albums, no EPs, and then at the end I'll go over a couple of extra honorable mentions, let's say, of either EPs, albums, or singles that I really liked but just didn't quite fit this list. But with all that being said, let's get on to the 5th spot of my top 5 list. This is an album called Yokai by Within Destruction. So Within Destruction has been around for quite a while, and I definitely heard songs here or there from them, but they never really piqued my interest until this year's release, Yokai. So this album is quite different than anything they've released before. Of course, they were basically a slam slash deathcore band. That's what they're known for. I think they kind of coined the term like fake slam, or maybe they didn't coin it, but they definitely leaned into it pretty hard in their earlier marketing. So, you know, I'd always heard it before and it was cool, but not entirely my thing. But then they released the first single from this album, Yokai, which is called Hate Me. And my interest was definitely piqued because it was quite different than what I heard from them in the past, and I thought it was really cool. So the first single is called Hate Me. Here's a really small clip of what it sounds like. So as you can hear, it's clearly like deathcore, but it has this really interesting sample in the background. But yeah, so quite a bit different than their earlier stuff. It's still very heavy. It also has crazy heavy breakdowns like this. But then, as I mentioned earlier, it also has those really catchy parts as well, and that's what really got me into this album, because they seemed to find a good way to incorporate both the super heavy deathcore slam elements, but also manage to keep it catchy and fun, which is really hard to do. And I thought they did it in a really cool way. They also have a really interesting theme running throughout all of their marketing campaign, as well as the artwork, and of course the visual themes of the album with their music videos, album artwork, and everything like that, which is of course like a Japanese cultural theme influence. And I don't know, I think that's pretty cool. As you can see in the background, I'm not a weeb, but like, you know, I like me some anime, so I thought that was pretty cool. The reason this is in my #5 spot though is because the album as a whole is pretty good, but there are a couple of songs that I didn't necessarily like personally, but they also kind of inserted, you know, hip hop or rap artists as guest features, which I thought was like an interesting concept because that doesn't happen too often in metal, especially in deathcore. So it was cool that they did it, but I kind of thought it was done a little weirdly for my taste. I'm already not really into hip hop or rap in the first place, so this was definitely not geared towards me. But I thought it kind of sounded a little bit like inserted into the songs. It didn't necessarily flow with what was there, if that makes any sense. No offense to these guys. I know, obviously, Howie and Francesco, you guys watch my channel, you know I love you, but hey, just being honest. I'm gonna fuck you up, motherfucker! Okay, next up, moving on to number 4. This is an album called Matriphagy. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Matriphagy.
By a band called Tala. This is their first ever full-length album, They had an EP before this, which I have never heard before, so this was like my introduction to the band, and wow, I was so blown away. I can't believe this is their first album ever. So essentially, the very vague explanation of what's going on here, Metrifugi is basically a concept album about the central character of the album who essentially kills his mother and eats her. So it's a little weird, for sure. I still need to read into the lyrics a little bit more to get all of the details, but the singer of this band did a really cool series on their YouTube channel where he actually explained track by track. I can't remember if he explained the whole album yet, but he definitely did most of it by now. So if that interests you, go check that out, because his lyrical explanations are really cool. Really smart guy, really talented lyricist, and an amazing vocalist, Jesus Christ.
You just watch as the fuse on our main character just burns down smaller and smaller and smaller until he finally just explodes and brutally murders, dismembers, and eats his mom.
So one of the most interesting things about this album is definitely the vocals, both in terms of lyrical content and his technical skill. This guy can really do anything, man. Like, he can sing, he can do like a metalcore scream, he can do like a new metal rap thing, he can do like brutal guttural screams, he can really do it all. And it's kind of all showcased in basically the first 2 tracks. So if you listen to the first 2 tracks of this album, you pretty much know what you're in for, and I am all here for it. So first of all, the album starts like this with the craziest drum intro I've ever heard in a really long time. And then right after that drum solo and a couple of riffs, it goes straight into the vocalist doing this. And then the next song they go and do something like this, where the vocalist is rapping and it's got like kind of like a corn new metal thing going on like this.
So here's just the way it is. I'm not clever enough to fix it, so I try my best to twist it. There's some reasons to go and reasons to stay. Keep it in my chest pocket, keep it close to me, not in my mouth.
And then they've also got these big new metal sounding synths in the background and have these epic choruses like this.
Life's been too far to be me, and I'm struggling with this. I'm crooked and that's what brings.
So really, they're kind of a jack of all trades. They can do everything, and I personally grew up with new metal. This is a theme that you'll notice for the rest of this video, by the way. So it's really cool that they kind of, I guess, encapsulated that sound that I felt that I grew up with, you know, when I was in my early teens, like listening to Korn, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, stuff like that. They kind of took elements of that, but made it their own, and also managed to blend it with more like metalcore, deathcore. It was just really cool, man, and I haven't really heard a concept album like this in a really long time that stuck with me. Concept albums are typically not something I like because I have a short attention span, but I thought that this one was really interesting. Okay, next up at number 3, some of you are absolutely going to hate that this is my number 3 spot, but I really don't care because in my opinion, it's an amazing album. This is Post-Human Survival Horror by Bring Me the Horizon. I'm sure pretty much everyone in the world knows who Bring Me the Horizon is by now. Of course, they started out as like a deathcore band, I guess, back in like 2000, I don't know, 10? No, like 2005 or something like that. Really long time ago. They are obviously not a deathcore band anymore by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I don't even know what I would consider them. They kind of just do whatever they want. It's more on like the hard rock with slight metalcore influence side of things, I guess I would say. But as I was mentioning with Tallow, the thing that I really, really loved about Bring Me the Horizon's album was they totally brought in a ton of nostalgia-based new metal influence that I am in love with. Again, this is what I grew up on, so I just thought they did it in such an interesting way. They also co-produced this album, or at least some of the songs on the album, with Mick Gordon, who of course is the infamously known for his Doom soundtrack, which is all over my channel. Obviously, I love everything Mick Gordon does. And yeah, this album was just really good, man. Like, I didn't really like Ammo, which was Bring Me the Horizon's last album that I think they released in 2018. That one was okay. It wasn't really my favorite. It didn't really do anything for me. But with this one, man, like, they really nailed it on the head. Like, I loved their previous album, That's the Spirit, and then I didn't like Ammo, and then they really got my attention again with this one, because they kind of went back to a That's the Spirit-esque sound with a little bit of influence from Ammo, like the good parts of Ammo, and then they also brought in that nu metal influence, and there's so many guest features on this album. So my standout tracks for this one are, of course, Parasite Eve, which was the first track they released in collaboration with Mick Gordon. There's so many amazing parts in this song, but man, the chorus, just listen to this chorus. Hello, Andrew from the future here, just coming in to say that we got some copyright claims, so I had to delete this section of the video. Sorry, you're gonna have to go look up the song yourself, I guess. And then next up, as I was talking about with dripping in nu metal nostalgia, we got Teardrops, which is again like a total throwback to that like older Linkin Park style. Again, just take a listen to this chorus. Andrew from the future here once again. Yep, that's a copyright claim. Can't play that? Go look up the song and take a listen, I guess. And then the other standout track on this album is Kingslayer, which was actually done in collaboration with Baby Metal. I'm a big Baby Metal fan. I know lots of people hate Baby Metal as well. I think they're awesome, and it was really cool to see them do this collab. I know I'm picking all choruses from this album. There are things that are great other than choruses, but that's the way it is. You know, it's a little bit more on the pop side, so the choruses are what stand out. So again, here's the chorus of Kingslayer, my third recommendation from this album. Oh boy, okay, another copyright claim. You know the drill, go look it up yourself and listen to the music if you want. Okay, moving on to number 2 on my list. This is A Quiet Place to Die by Alpha Wolf. This is another band that I've been following for a few years now. I think I first heard of them in 2017 when they released their album Mono. I think it literally came up as a recommended video on YouTube, which I almost never watch. But the thumbnail for this music video, something about it caught my eye, and I was like, huh, I think this band might be good. Let's check it out. And sure enough, I was completely blown away. They are an Australian, I don't know what you would call it. I don't want to say metalcore. I don't want to say deathcore. It's like almost like a heavy hardcore, heavy metalcore. It's heavier than standard metalcore, but not quite deathcore. Somewhere in between, whatever you'd call that. They use 7-string guitars tuned to drop G, so it's got a little bit of that djent in there as well. Really, really good stuff. So I personally really liked their album Mono, which again was the one in 2017. But yeah, so they had a vocalist switch up, and then they released an EP with this new vocalist, and it was good but not great. There was a couple of tracks on it that I really liked and a couple that I thought were really boring. So when they did that, I was kind of like, oh, okay, it's cool, but you know, let's see what they do next. And then sure enough, this year they came out with their full-length album with that new guy. And man, they really nailed it. It's super, super good all the way through. I can listen to this album front to back, no issue, no tracks I want to skip. It really comes out of the gate swinging. Like, my first recommended track for you guys to listen to is Creep, which is I think the second song on the album, and this is literally how the song starts. And then as I was mentioning, I really did like that previous album Mono, and I thought it was really cool that they added in some Easter eggs for fans who have been with the band a little longer. So on the Mono album, there were 2 songs that were called Golden Fate and then something. So basically it was a 2-part song, if you will. And then on this album, they added another Golden Fate song to make it into a trilogy. I don't know what the lyrics are about, so I would have to look into that. But there was still an Easter egg for someone like me who doesn't necessarily read the lyrics. But the guitar parts, they actually brought back a guitar part from one of the previous Golden Fate songs as like a background lead. And I thought that was a really cool callback for fans like me who have listened to their previous stuff. You know, you hear it in the background, you're like, oh shit, I remember that from blah, blah, blah. I don't know, I just thought it was a cool thing to do. This is what that sounds like. Consumed by cinder, a malicious defeater. Did you know? And then of course the biggest song from the album was Aku Dama, which was the first single they released, and in my opinion is the best song on the album, but there are tons of other good ones. But this song really just speaks for itself. Literally the name of the song, and you'll hear why right now. And then my final recommendation for this album is a song called Bleed For You. This is probably the most different song on the album. It's the softest one. It still gets pretty heavy, but for the most part, it's actually clean singing, whereas most of the other songs don't really have any clean singing at all. So I thought this was a really interesting way for them to change it up, because I hadn't really heard this band do anything like this on any of their previous releases. And in my opinion, they did it really well. And that's what this sounds like. Okay, so if any of that sounded interesting to you, go check them out. It's A Quiet Place to Die by Alpha Wolf. And now moving on to the number 1 spot. If you guys follow me at all, you already know what I'm gonna say, because I have been obsessed with this band for years now, and man, it's Loathe. Of course it's Loathe. The album is called I Let It In, and It Took Everything. This was one of the first albums to come out this year. I think it came out in February, so very early on, before COVID, when the world was awful. And even though this came out all the way back in February, as soon as I heard it, I was like, yeah, this is the album of the year. Even back in February, I already knew there's no way anything can top this, and that remains true for me personally. This album is, in my opinion, a complete masterpiece, like absolute 10 out of 10. There's not a single thing I would change about it. I completely love it, and I still listen to this album fully, probably like at least once or twice a month, if not once a week almost. It's so good. It's honestly hard to recommend specific songs, because every song has something about it that, in my opinion, is amazing. But they do so many different styles so well, so it's really hard to pick a recommendation. So I'm gonna pick 4 recommendations for this one. So I'll show you 4 little clips that are quite different. So basically they do a lot of stuff that is more on like the soft side, which is kind of like Deftones-y, I guess, but even more chill, if that makes any sense. So the first recommendation is, of course, Two-Way Mirror. It sounds like this. And then the second song that's mostly more chill, this one does get a little heavier and it has a breakdown in it, but for the most part, you'll get what I mean. This song is called Screaming. This is what it sounds like. But don't get me wrong, they also get ridiculously heavy. So I got 2 heavy recommendations for you guys as well. The first one is a song called Gourd, which is brutal as hell, and it sounds like this. And the last recommendation for this album is a song title that is way too long for me to memorize, but it's called Heavy is the Head That Hangs with the Weight of 1,000 Dying Crowns, or something like that. I'll put the name on the screen because I don't remember it. It's literally like a sentence. So yeah, the name is ridiculous, but this song is insane. So they got like black metal in there. They have like a super low tuned guitar that's like double drop B or something. Like, man, it just is crazy. This is what it sounds like. So yeah, as I said, these are only some of the standout moments of this album. Really, I'm not exaggerating when I say every single song on this album has something in it that will probably speak to you. I don't know, man. There's not enough good things I can say about this album. I absolutely love it, and that is my number 1 spot. Loathe, I Let It In, and It Took Everything. Okay, so that was my top 5 list. I have a couple of more recommendations for you guys. Again, these ones kind of didn't really fit in the top 5 albums category, so these are like honorable mentions. So there was a few singles released this year that I thought were amazing. Another artist is, of course, my boy Nick Nocturnal. He started his new band with Andy Sizek called Termina, and they released 3 songs this year. All 3 of them are really good, but in my opinion, their newest one is the best. It sounds like this. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to Reflections. They did release a full album this year, but it wasn't, it just like, it was so close to being 5th place, but just like slightly under. But there's tons of amazing songs on this album. You guys have heard their song From Nothing on a couple of my videos because that's my favorite song from the album, and it sounds like this. And then the final shout out I wanted to give to a band called Darko Us. It is the singer of Chelsea Grin and the drummer from Amir. It's basically like their side project, which in my opinion is incredible. It's one of the heaviest things I've ever heard in my life. And the standout track is called Insects. It sounds like this. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Again, please let me know of your album recommendations in the comments below. I hope that some of you guys have not heard of these bands before, so you have new bands to go and check out. If you don't do that, let them know that I sent you their way. That makes sense. Let them know that I sent you their way. There we go, that's a sentence. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Big thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. Normally, I give you guys stems, audio downloads, guitar tabs, and a shout out on the screen. Of course, in videos like this, that's not really applicable, but I appreciate the support anyways. And last but not least, this might be my last video for 2020. So if that's the case, thank you guys for making my first full year of being a full-time YouTuber amazing. This is literally a dream come true, and I cannot thank all of you who watch enough. So I'm looking forward to 2021. Hopefully it's a better year overall, but either way, I'll still be sitting here playing breakdowns for you all as long as you keep watching. Thank you guys so much. Whoa. Thank you guys so much. Look forward to reading your comments. Go check out some new music, and I'll see you next time.